All right, this week in the news, I'm going to get on to a few things that I came across. Today, this week, I came across what's Pathfinder does is beginner boxes. So this is apparently the third year in a row that they've done beginner boxes to kind of get people into Pathfinder and everything. Uh, Apparently, it kicked off on the 21st, and this is like I said, the third year in a row they've done it because they've had like a success in the past couple of years. What the so that's one of the things they're doing is kind of like hey look, let's increase Pathfinder, and of course with like the whole OGL scandal, and plus with the Wizards of the Coast laying off a bunch of people back in December around Christmas time and everything, and stuff like that doesn't look too good for Wizards of the Coast, the Hasbro, and with Dungeons and Dragons. And of course, I'll be getting into stuff like that because D&D is still the top of the RPG list and everything. But with Pathfinder, with being this beginner box, the third year in a row, could be like a good idea. It's definitely a good idea for them to be like, oh hey, look, you don't like what's going on with the Hasbro and D&D, and here's our product and everything. So here's a beginner box. Come in and try this and everything. And of course, most people probably realize that can see it's still based on third edition D&D, the D20 system, but most games the D20 system has become quite popular because not only is Pathfinder based on that, but the Paizo's other game, Starfinder, is based on the D20 system. Farscape game that I've gone over is based on that D20 system. So the D20 system is popular, and it's relatively easy system to learn because with all the classes and the skills and the abilities, the way it's set up, it's relatively easy to pick up and everything. Comparing the D20 system with fifth edition D&D, I would say that the D20 system would be easier to pick up. This is the beginner boxes is a good idea for Pathfinder to be like, hey, look, you don't like what's going on over here? Come on over here and try our stuff and everything. Another one of the things that's coming out for Pathfinder is called the Wardens of Wildwood, and it gets into the way I read it and everything is a whole new campaign setting where you get into the Verduran Forest, Verduran, and of course I've always been bad at pronunciation and everything. Verduran, people can probably correct me if I'm wrong, or but it gets into the Verduran Forest, the Wildwood Lodge, and basically the meat of ages, stuff like that. And of course it gives you new backgrounds and everything with this. Six new ones. It kind of is in a sense that you can kind of see that it's forest related. So you get subclasses like the Fey Friend, the Green Faith Pilgrim, Verduran City Folk, and the Wood Wardens. Kind of just to name a few and everything. So stuff like that. That is a couple things that's going on with the Pathfinder that I came across, and another now with D&D. If you're still into D&D and even with all the stuff I just mentioned and everything, they are I'll be touching on the player's handbook, and they're re-releasing what's one D&D as it's become, or of course they're still considering it fifth edition, and they're kind of in a sense rebranded it, even though they don't necessarily call it one D&D anymore. It's just, hey look, it's still fifth edition. They're upgrading the player's handbook, and it's set to come out in September. So they're still going to have pretty much all the main classes. What they're going to be doing is they're going to have the Artificer, Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. And so they're also doing 48 subclasses. So basically furnish 4 for each and everything. So it gives you as you can tell a lot more options and everything. So they're revamping a lot of stuff for this. Some of the stuff that that I saw that was mentioned is like the progression for the Warlock, their spell progression, their advancement, and stuff like that. That's going to be changed. Another thing they mentioned was the Druid wild shape ability. That's going to be something that's going to be tweaked and everything. So like in a sense, like it's not necessarily like a 6th edition or whatever. It's just like a revamping of 5th edition. So they're kind of like because 5th edition came out back in 2014, so it's been out for 10 years. So like it's a way for like Wizards of the Coast to kind of like tweak stuff and like, okay, look, we've had the success with all this and everything, so let's start tweaking stuff to improve upon it. So now they did mention that it's going to be backwards compatible. So like for instance, like a lot of like the adventure books that you have or you might have picked up over the course of the years, you'll still be able to do them with this being, like I said, backwards compatible. So like books like I've done like Curse of Strahd or like or like the Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. Your adventure books that like you've picked up and or maybe you've run through already, you're going to be able to like run through those again, and because it's going to be, like I said, backwards compatible and everything. So it's not just here's 5th edition, let's just chuck it out and start fresh. It's more of, like I said, like tweaking and being like, okay, here's what works, here's what we're revamping to make it better and everything. So like with mentioning the Artificer being in PHP, that's kind of cool, because in like the source books that and of course I've done these, is like the Tasha's Cauldron and everything, you find the Artificer class in that. You don't actually find it in the PHP of like the original handbook, player's handbook. So that could be quite a good tweak that they do, putting the Artificer class in the PHP, so that way like you don't have to pull out another like a second book to play the Artificer class. So it's already in there. So that could be like a decent tweak that they do with this book. So, and that like I said is coming out in September. So it's a revamp for like, and of course now like what I do with these news segments is like I tend to focus on Pathfinder and D&D because those are the top two. But what like another thing like I came across, and this is the first time like I've heard of it and everything. So, and I've come across it. It's like it's called Shadows of Esteren. It's a Gothic style RPG and everything, Gothic fantasy. So I just read an article about it. And like, oh hey, this looks kind of cool, like a Gothic fantasy, kind of interesting and everything. So it's the latest one is on a Kickstarter, and like you got like a few weeks left. It's supposed to be ending on May 17th. So like kind of like it's a new one that like I said, I haven't heard about and everything. So like it might this is the Shadows of Esteren, being a Gothic fantasy, being something slightly different. It looks like something that like I'll want to get into it eventually, because like of course there's so with being there's so many out there. Like of course, like I said, D&D and Pathfinder are the top two. But you also have like other books and stuff that other RPGs and like stuff that like I've gone over, like the Marvel superhero RPG, like as you can see, like with the Blue Rose book, I've gone over that and everything. So that Blue Rose is a romantic type, romantic fantasy RPG, and so that's what kind of got me interested into like the Shadows of Esteren, being a slightly different like theme type of RPG and everything. So like I read the article and like, oh okay, I've never come across this. This seems interesting. So eventually like I'll probably like I will probably pick one of those books up and everything, and like and get into it and like do a video like, hey here's like do like the usual like flip through, like weekly flip through that I do. And so like for instance, this is last week I did a flip through of the Ultimate Equipment book for Pathfinder. So I've been doing quite a few of those lately. So like if you go back into the previous videos, you can see the flip throughs of those. And so now like I'll be getting in going forward, I'll probably be getting into like some of the alternatives and everything. But anyway, like those are the kind of like the three things that I came across that like touching on like in kind of like this week's news segment. So like with Pathfinder, was the beginner's box day that started on the 21st, and of course as of recording this, it's the 27th, so it's been out for like a little while. And like I said, Pathfinder's had success with that. and I also I talked about like the Wardens of Wildwood, which is kind of like what I read, kind of gathered that it was like a different type of campaign setting, and of course like the with D&D, it's the whole revamp of like a fifth edition and the player's handbook coming out in September and everything. So there's still some time between now and when the revamp comes out for people to kind of finish up any campaigns that they're running. And of course, like I just recently mentioned, the Shadows of Esteren, which is a gothic fantasy, kind of similar type of concept, with the Blue Rose being a romantic fantasy. It focuses in on something else and everything. So that's just something new that I came across that I'll be looking into, and for other people to look into. So in case you haven't heard of Shadows of Esteren, it's just something new that we can check out and everything. So those are the stuff that I've talked about this week. So next week I'll probably continue on with Pathfinder and D&D, because those are the big two. What I'll try and do is find other stuff just like this Shadow of Esteren that I did this week.